Let's take a look at an introduction to HRD in diversity. In order for organizations to compete in a global economy, they must be able to attract and retain the best employees. For most organizations, this means recruiting and hiring a more diverse workforce for roles that they have less typically held. In a diverse marketplace, organizations are increasingly seeking to reflect their workforce in terms of diversity found in their customers. As more organizations become globally integrated, the HRD and learning efforts taking place must keep pace. Organizational culture can be defined as a set of shared values, beliefs, and norms that are used to guide employee behavior. Organizational culture is used as a frame of reference for the way one looks at, attempts to understand, and works with an organization. Organizations are subsets of larger sociopolitical cultures. Artifacts are objects and patterns that communicate information about the organization's technology, values, and ways of doing things. Material artifacts include documents, physical layout, furnishings, patterns of dress, and so on. Non-material artifacts include organizational stories, ceremonies, and leadership styles. Patterns of behavior help to reinforce an organization's assumptions, beliefs, and ways of doing things through staff meetings, training programs, filing forms, and other normal organizational practice. For example, if an organization initiates a sexual harassment policy by scheduling a mandatory training program for all employees, it's communicating a high level of importance and value to this responsibility. If an organization employs individuals who make similar assumptions about people and have similar values and beliefs, then there's a greater likelihood that they'll demonstrate loyalty and commitment to organizational goals. Conversely, organizations that employ people from diverse cultures or subcultures where they may be divergent in terms of assumptions, values, and beliefs may have different experiences. Cultural diversity can have many positive outcomes. This diversity, among other things, can bring richness of perspective to an organization. Demographic shifts in the United States population and around the world continue to impact the workforce. Unfortunately, discrimination remains a concern in today's workplace. Discrimination can occur in various ways. For example, access discrimination occurs when an organization places limits on job availability through restraining advertisements, rejecting applicants, or offering lower starting salaries to certain types of people. Treatment discrimination occurs after a person is hired and takes the form of limiting opportunities or harassing certain individuals because of who they are. Both types of discrimination are covered under Equal Employment Opportunity Law. Sexual harassment is another form of treatment discrimination that can take many forms. From unwanted, off-color jokes to outright unwanted sexual propositions and touching to offers of job rewards in exchange for sexual favors. If an employee's subjection to or rejection of the sexual conduct is used as a basis for an employment decision, this is referred to as quid pro quo sexual harassment. However, even if the harassment is not linked directly to an employment decision, such as a cut in pay or a loss of promotion, it can still be illegal harassment if the behavior is found to have created a hostile work environment. Treatment discrimination against minorities in the workplace is seen primarily in the lack of promotional opportunities and incidents of racial harassment. The number of formal charges of race discrimination remains high. Racial harassment on the job takes many forms. The most obvious form of racial harassment occurs when a coworker verbally or physically attacks a person of color because of racial difference. One important group of civil rights laws mandate equal employment opportunity known as EEO, which is defined as the right to obtain jobs and earn rewards in them regardless of non-job related factors. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the amendments that have followed make it unlawful for employers to make employment decisions on the basis of protected class status like race, color, sex, religion, and others. Differences based on culture, religion, and other variables must be considered in work settings. Most organizations recognize the demographic changes that have occurred in the workforce over the past 50 years. In response to the civil rights and feminist movements, as well as equal employment legislation, many organizations established programs to facilitate the recruitment and retention of qualified women and minorities. The inclusion of women, minorities, and other underrepresented groups has made organizations more culturally diverse. But even if an organization is culturally diverse, it may not be aware of or acknowledge this diversity. One approach that goes beyond the obligations specified in EEO legislation is affirmative action. While organizations covered by Title VII are encouraged to participate in affirmative action, they're not legally required to do so. The purpose of affirmative action programs is to bring members of underrepresented groups, usually groups that have suffered discrimination, into higher degree of participation in some beneficial program. The concept of affirmative action was written into U.S. law in 1965 and requires certain government agencies and employers undertake affirmative action process to ensure equal employment opportunity. While EEO seeks to ignore race and gender in the hiring process, affirmative action sometimes requires actions such as preferential hiring when certain groups are underrepresented in an occupation within an organization. Affirmative action remains a volatile topic in the United States. Supporters believe that it's necessary for correcting patterns of discrimination where minorities have been inhibited by institutionalized racism. Critics argue that affirmative action goes beyond providing equal employment opportunity by allowing employers to give preference to members of protected groups at the expense of majority group members. Managing diversity is a comprehensive managerial process for developing the environment, organizational culture that works for all employees. There's growing appreciation of the need to address diversity issues. Many organizations have achieved success with such programs, especially those that emphasize a managing diversity approach. Globalization is increasingly being linked to diversity management efforts. The argument is that a multicultural perspective is needed for organizations to successfully compete in the global marketplace. Globalization has also resulted in more individuals being given expatriate assignments. An expatriate is someone working in a professional capacity outside their home country, often in a limited term assignment. To prepare employees for expatriate work assignments, many organizations provide cross-cultural training. Programs that focus on how attitudes are shaped help people to understand how cultural stereotypes are formed and the destructiveness of cultural bias. Providing factual information about each culture is necessary to reinforce new assumptions, values, beliefs, and attitudes about different cultures. Programs that build skills in the areas of language, nonverbal communication, cultural stress management, and adjustment adaptation address critical interpersonal relations of both employees inside and outside the organization. Given the high cost of much cross-cultural training, it's worth asking whether such programs are effective or not. Fortunately, research on this question has been quite positive. Well-executed cross-cultural training can have beneficial effects on employee adjustment and international assignments. The changing demographics of the workforce present both opportunities and challenges to HRD professionals. One of the challenges is seeking to remove all causes of discrimination. Professionals must be willing to confront the underlying assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes that foster bigotry and stereotyping that exist within their organization. They should examine their organization's practices in the areas of socialization, orientation, career development, and sexual and racial harassment. Socialization is the process by which an individual becomes an insider through assimilating roles, norms, and expectations of an organization. A new employee's initial experiences in an organization are particularly significant in influencing later decisions about career choices and whether to remain in an organization. Most succession planning and career development programs do not explicitly deal with the special concerns of a culturally diverse workforce. More direct action should be taken to modify career development systems. Reports of sexual and racial harassment have remained high over the past 30 years. Organizations must take affirmative steps to deal with this problem in the workplace. Many organizations use human resource management, HRM, policies and programs to meet the needs of a new workforce. Through the development of affirmative action and diversity recruitment programs, many organizations have developed recruitment methods that are more effective in attracting qualified women and minority candidates. A growing number of organizations are holding managers formally accountable for diversity goals, for example, incorporating such goals into performance evaluation. Some organizations have devised flexible work schedules or flex time and added or enhanced their childcare programs to aid the growing number of working parents, especially mothers, who are entering or re entering the workforce. Some organizations use innovative communication tools for employees with limited to no English proficiency.